Okay. Well, no one really cares if you denounce us or not. Japan was, again, a notoriously insular nation. And how are those swordsmen surviving? We are continuing our battle against Florence. A unit requires a promotion. That being our soldiers. I'm not sure why it's still showing this swordsman here. He was vanquished by the companion cavalry, but it just seems to be a minor glitch in the game. Them to move over here. Move on to our next turn. We'll also be moving up support. Now in Corinth, we've completed the trireme, the first naval unit of the Greek Empire, and we're going to send them out to explore so that we learn more about the world around us. Companion cavalry also need to heal. Hoplites attacking the city of Florence. Dangerous battles, but what can you do? Now, a new golden age has dawned in Greece, thanks to Cortez and his bravery in the face of the war against Florence. And those spearmen are giving their lives, essentially, in their attempt to attack the city of Florence. We have a unit who needs to be promoted by healing, and sent back into the war, because war is hell. There is nothing happy about life in the time of war. We're now already in 400 AD. This is technically, some call this the Byzantine era, but in reality, it was no such thing. This was actually just an empire of Alexander. He had many guises, but always he was the same man beneath. And Florence is about to fall to the hoplites of Greece. Now we are going to annex this city, even though it will cause us extra unhappiness. We're actually going to create a puppet city first, and deal with it from there. Florence has been captured, its resources have been added to those of Greece, and life continues. It was a costly battle. It was a violent battle. Many good soldiers died. But what really can we say? This worker will be set the task of connecting Florence to Athens. Good work, Arsenio II. These hoplites will heal themselves here. And Athens is ready to build something new. Angkor Wat, perhaps, will help us gain more influence with the city-states. We're going to give them a focus on production, which will hopefully increase the amount of time, or decrease the amount of time, rather, that it will take to build Angkor Wat. Following the conquest of Florence, Greece lay dormant for many scores of years. Alexander chafed at the bit for more blood and war, but his nation needed time to recover, physically, spiritually, and financially, from the vicious conflict that it endured with the intractable Florentines. Grudgingly, Alexander focused his nation on research and cultural growth, engaging in long-term public works projects in each of his cities, including the Great Road between Florence, Athens, and Corinth, the three corners of his far-flung empire. In 550 BC, or 550 AD rather, Florentine loyalists and remnants of the city-states' armies continued to wage guerrilla warfare against Greece, but were swiftly overcome by the discovery of steel and the sharp blades it created. Following the founding of Argos near Athens, Knossos was founded in the far north. Those barbarians have been firmly defeated, the encampment has been cleared and the way has been opened. As we can see, our army is still one of the strongest in the world.
The temple is like no other building in the world. It has towers and
with Angkor Wat completed,
all the refinements which
the nation can continue to prosper. Now, time passed, more cities were founded. Here, Knossos, in the far north, across the channel from Florence. Knossos' foundation would prove to be the straw that broke the camel's back where international relations were concerned. It proved too much of a threat to Japan, but the people of Greece were no longer thinking of war. They had grown past their conflict in the intervening centuries and become complacent in the company of books.
Your people
Though they weren't
no
happy.
longer happy. An unhappy populace will not grow as fast.
Again, they were still suffering from the ennui, but more schools were founded very soon afterwards.
Education is the best provision.
Indeed it is. Thank you, Aristotle, by way of Spock. Not long after, the era of the Renaissance would begin in Greece.
Joyfully to the breeze, royal Odysseus spread his sail, and with his rudder skillfully he steered. Whoever desires to found a state and give it laws must start with assuming that all men are bad and ever ready to display their vicious nature whenever they may find occasion for it.
Penn still attempting to take advantage of us. But this again part of their scheme. So Jason and his Argonauts roamed the seas in search of the Golden Fleece. Instead, they found Russia in 1440, ruled by Catherine the Great. She was not open to trade in any meaningful way. More city-states were discovered on the new continent. Knossos grew. Academics flourished. Life was good for the Greek. They even regained the happiness that they had lost with the discovery that there were worlds outside. Now, 40 years later, they discovered Darius the First of Persia, also not open to fair trades. Now, Persia was a legendary nation in the history of Greece. Alexander dreamed of conquering it, and he had all his life, but they were so far away that his dreams seemed unlikely to reach fruition. This tormented him in his dreams and drove him slowly mad.
Measure what is measurable, and make measurable what is not so.
I think physics is my favorite science, because when things get too complicated they simply say, let's ignore the hard part. During this time, Japan's army and lust for expansion grew unchecked, along with Nobunaga's ambition, and jealousy of the culturally superior Greek. Sandwiched between the powerful Aztec in the east and the bloodthirsty Greek in the west, Nobunaga was left with no choice but war if he was to obtain more living room. Japan declared war on Montezuma. Meanwhile,
the winds and the waves are always on the side of the ablest navigators.
Sir Isaac Newton was born in Athens, and very quickly discovered the way in which the world worked. And from there, he moved on to find the rotations of the Earth and thereby discover the science of navigation. The war between Japan and Montezuma continued until 1545. A mere 30 years into the conflict, neither side had been able to make any meaningful progress or capture a single city in the fastness of their enemies' empires. They simply packed it up and went home, but as part of their negotiations, Montezuma and Nobunaga agreed that Alexander of Greece was a total jerk, and each nation was swift to issue a public denunciation of the peaceful Greek nation. Jason and the Argonauts discovered America in 1575. At the time, Greece was the most prosperous nation on the planet, but the people of Athens demanded gold for jewelry. A bargain was struck between Alexander and George Washington, which was the beginning of a long, troubled relationship between the two nations.
Is the following trade of interest to you?
Gunpowder was discovered, and war could not be far behind. Now, the war between Japan and the Aztec had been in an attempt to open up the massive subcontinent in which the Aztec Empire resided. But, again, it had been fruitless. The Great Wall of Montezuma, which surrounded the entire nation, was simply impermeable. Japan finally declared war on Greece in 1595, claiming that they could not make their mark on history without shedding the blood of the weak. Not a very nice thing to say, in fact, rather insulting indeed. Fortunately, Cape Town and Almaty were swift to declare their allegiance to Greece. Unfortunately, their contributions to the war were, to put it lightly, minimal. Now, at this point, Japan was extremely powerful. Their might was vast, their armies large, and the war would continue for quite some time. Alexander thirsted for conquest, but his armies lacked the power. More city-states were discovered on the new continent, though influence could not be exerted over them at the time because the war was sucking all of the resources from the nation of Greece. Japan attacked on all fronts, towards Argos, towards Sparta, and towards Corinth, a city they seemed to desire more than any other. And here we can see the hoplites of Corinth discovering new weaponry, holding fast, trying to hold the line against the knights of Japan. Sparta, making her fury known, trying to drive back the powerful horsemen of Nobunaga. Blades are sharpened in Corinth, wills are set, resolve is built. Though all hope seems lost, Greece has spent far too long indulging its academic side, and has lost its ability to wage war in the manner which Alexander desired. Now, the Trireme simply lacked the power to take on the walls of Nagoya, and no other unit that Alexander possessed could seem to make headway. The war seemed a fruitless effort on both sides, though Japan routinely destroyed the units of the Greek. Fortunately, they were not able to take the city quite so quickly. The defenders of Corinth were stalwart indeed. Trireme, still trying to breach Nagoya, to no avail, simply lacking the power it needed. And for some reason, this caravel had gotten stuck in a lake on the new continent. We're not sure how it got there, but it could not escape. And this perhaps was a glitch in the simulation, but it was incredibly unfortunate, as that caravel would have given us, or Greece, an edge, which they desperately needed. Unfortunately, the caravel had somehow traversed the lands of the continent to end up there, and had to be decommissioned. Greece needed the money. The war continued, mostly in Corinth, at the border with Tokyo, and in Sparta, at the border with Kyoto, and Kagoshima. The swordsmen, finding that they were no match for the knights, grew upset and retreated into the city walls for protection. Knossos continued to grow, Nagoya destroying the Trireme. Despite its valiant efforts, pikemen and knights arrayed themselves before Nagoya, but were hesitant. Alright, remember to rate, comment, and subscribe to this course so that you know when new lessons are available, and until next time, all the best.